The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known universe. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems. A massive sphere of crystal and metal that could hold representatives from over 500 different alien races. Today, it was full. Every seat was taken. Every eye, whether they had 2 or 20, was watching the center platform where history was about to be made. Ambassador Alina Voss stood alone on that platform. She was a tall woman with gray hair and calm brown eyes. She wore a simple black uniform with the blue and green symbol of Earth on her shoulder. Behind her, on a holographic screen 50 meters tall, the flag of the United Human Colonies waved gently in a digital breeze. This was humanity's moment. After 20 years of hard work, sacrifice, and careful diplomacy, they had finally earned a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. They were the youngest species ever to receive this honor. Alina had spent her entire career working toward this day. The chamber was filled with sounds that human ears could barely understand. Clicks, whistles, deep rumbles, and high-pitched frequencies that required translation devices to make sense of. Hundreds of alien diplomats were discussing the ceremony in their own languages. Most of them seemed curious about the humans. Some seemed friendly. A few did not. The Valkyrie delegation sat in the highest seats, looking down on everyone else. They were tall beings with blue-gray skin, for eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces, and long fingers that ended in sharp points. They had been part of the council since its founding 12,000 years ago. They considered themselves the true rulers of the galaxy, even if they never said it directly. High Counselor Zorith was their leader. He was older than most of his kind, his skin darker and more wrinkled, but his 4 eyes were sharp and full of cold intelligence. He had watched the humans arrive with growing disgust. These creatures were barely out of their caves, in his view. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 200 years ago. They were children playing at being adults. The ceremony began with the traditional words spoken by the council speaker. A small, furry being from a species that had served as neutral administrators for thousands of years. The speaker welcomed humanity to the council and listed their achievements. The human colonies, the trade agreements, the peace they had maintained along the Outer Rim territories. Alina listened with pride, but also with caution. She had learned long ago that moments of triumph were often when enemies chose to strike. She was right. As the speaker finished and invited humanity to take their seat, High Counselor Zorith rose from his throne. The chamber fell silent immediately. When a Velkari High Counselor spoke, everyone listened. It was not respect that caused this silence. It was fear. Zorith descended slowly from his elevated position, his robes flowing behind him like liquid shadow. He stopped at the edge of the central platform. Looking at Alina the way someone might look at an insect that had crawled onto their dinner table, "I must speak," Zorith announced, his voice carrying through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "Before this council makes a terrible mistake." The speaker looked nervous but nodded. "The High Counselor has the floor." Zorith turned to address the entire assembly, gesturing at Alina as if she were evidence of a crime. "Look at this creature," he said. "Look at these humans. They have existed in space for barely 200 years. 200 years. The Velkari Dominion was already ancient when their ancestors were still living in mud huts and hunting animals with sharpened sticks. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned forward with interest. They breathed like parasites," Zorith continued, his voice rising. "They spread across worlds that should belong to their betters. They consume resources without thought for the future. They are clever animals, nothing more. Animals who stumbled upon technology they do not deserve and cannot be trusted with." Alina remained perfectly still. Her expression did not change. Inside, her heart was beating fast, but she had prepared for this. She had known someone would try to stop humanity's rise. She had just not known who or when. "I propose," Zorith declared, spreading his arms wide, "that this council reject humanity's membership. I propose that their colonies be placed under proper governance by more mature species. I propose that humans be confined to their birth world until they prove they are ready to join civilized society. This could take 1,000 years, perhaps 10,000. But we have time. We have always had time. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species were shouting in agreement. Others were protesting. The speaker tried to restore order but failed. Zoroth stood in the chaos like a statue, his 4 eyes fixed on Alina, waiting for her to cry, to beg, to show weakness. Alina waited until the noise began to die down. Then she took 3 steps forward, closing the distance between herself and Zoroth. She was shorter than him, but somehow she did not seem small. "High Counselor Zoroth," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I have listened to your words with great interest. I have a question for you." Zoroth's eyes narrowed. He had not expected her to speak directly to him. Humans were supposed to be intimidated by the Valkyrie. Everyone was intimidated by the Valkyrie. "Ask your question, creature." "You have spoken of humanity as if we are weak," Alina said. "As if we are helpless children who can be pushed aside whenever you choose. You have proposed taking our colonies, our freedom, our future. You have done this publicly, before the entire council, without any attempt at private negotiation." She paused, letting her words sink in. "My question is this. Do you understand what you have just started? Do you truly understand the consequences of what you have done today?" Zoroth laughed. It was a harsh sound, like rocks grinding together. "Consequences? What consequences could there possibly be? You have no power here, human. You have no allies. You have nothing but your pathetic pride," Alina smiled. It was not a nervous smile or a diplomatic smile. It was the smile of someone who had been holding a secret for a very long time and was finally ready to share it. "Then I accept your challenge," she said simply. "And I hope you will remember this moment, Counselor. I hope you will remember that you were given a chance to walk away. Because what comes next will be remembered by the galaxy for the next 12,000 years." She turned and walked out of the chamber without looking back. Behind her, the council exploded into chaos. But Alina Voss was no longer listening. She was already thinking about what came next. The Valkyrie had made their move. Now it was humanity's turn. High Counselor Zoroth returned to his homeworld as a hero. The news broadcast showed his speech on every screen across all 17 star systems controlled by the Valkyrie Dominion. Citizens gathered in public squares to watch their leader put the arrogant humans in their place. Children were told that this was what true power looked like. This was how the Valkyrie had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Zoroth accepted the praise with satisfaction. He had been worried that some council members might object to his actions. Instead, many had quietly supported him. The humans were too ambitious, too fast-growing, too different. Better to crush them now, while they were still young and weak. But not everyone in the Valkyrie Dominion was celebrating. Deep in the military command center beneath the capital city, Admiral Kethson studied holographic displays with growing concern. He was one of the oldest and most experienced commanders in the Valkyrie fleet. He had fought in 17 wars and won all of them. He knew what victory looked like. He also knew what a trap looked like. "My lord," he said carefully when Zoroth arrived for the military briefing, "I must share some concerns about our intelligence on the humans." Zoroth waved his hand dismissively. He was still enjoying his triumph and did not want to hear problems. What concerns could there possibly be? "They are primitives." "That is what troubles me," Kethson replied. He pulled up a series of data files on the central display. "Look at these readings from our observation probes. Human ships are faster than our models predicted. Their weapon signatures do not match any technology we recognize. And there are gaps in their recorded history that we cannot explain." "Gaps?" "Yes, my lord. According to human records, it discovered faster-than-light travel 200 years ago and immediately began expanding into space. But our long-range sensors detected unusual energy signatures in their home system at least 100 years before that official date. We do not know what they were doing during that time." Zoroth snorted. "Probably making mistakes, learning through failure. That is what primitive species do." "Perhaps," Kethson said slowly. "But there is another possibility. What if they were hiding their true capabilities? What if they spent that century preparing for contact with species like us? The High Counselor stared at his admiral for a long moment. Then he laughed, the same harsh, grinding sound he had made in the council chamber. You are becoming paranoid in your old age, Ketson. The humans are clever animals who got lucky. Nothing more. Prepare the 7th Fleet. We will remind them, and the rest of the galaxy, why the Velkhari are feared. Ketson wanted to argue. Every instinct he had developed over centuries of warfare was screaming that something was wrong. But Zorath was the High Counselor. His word was law. The Admiral bowed his head and began issuing orders. 3 days later, the Velkhari 7th Fleet assembled in formation above Velkhar Prime. 800 warships arranged in perfect geometric patterns, their hulls gleaming with weapons that had burned cities and shattered worlds. This was the pride of the Dominion, a force that had never known defeat. Zorath watched from his personal command ship at the center of the formation. He had decided to lead this mission himself. He wanted to see the humans tremble. He wanted to watch their colony burn. The fleet jumped through hyperspace and emerged in the system called New Geneva by its human inhabitants. It was a small colony, only 50 million people living on a green world that orbited a yellow star much like Earth's sun. Zorath had chosen it specifically because it was far from the human core worlds, easy prey. A message that no human settlement was safe. But as the Velkhar sensors swept the system, Ketson felt his fear growing. The colony was there, peaceful and undefended. A few orbital stations. Some cargo ships. Nothing that could possibly stand against 800 warships. It was too easy. My lord, he began, I recommend we proceed with caution. This could be a communication signal, interrupted him. It was coming from the colony. It was being broadcast on an open channel that the entire fleet could hear. Ambassador Alina Voss appeared on every screen. She was sitting in a simple chair in what looked like a small office. Behind her, through a window, the blue-green curve of New Geneva was visible. She did not look afraid. She did not look worried. She looked almost bored. High Counselor Zorath, she said pleasantly. I was wondering when you would arrive. I must say I expected you sooner. Your fleet is quite slow. Zorath's 4 eyes widened with rage. You dare mock me? You dare speak to me this way? I have 800 warships pointed at your pathetic little world. Yes, I noticed, Alina replied. That is why I am giving you this warning. You have entered sovereign human territory with hostile intent. Under galactic law, we have the right to defend ourselves with whatever force we consider necessary. Defend yourselves. Zorath laughed. With what? I see no fleet. I see no weapons. I see nothing but frightened colonists and one foolish old woman. Alina smiled that strange smile again. Counselor, I am going to give you exactly 1 hour to withdraw your fleet from this system. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is a courtesy that I am extending because I believe in giving people chances to make better choices. And if I refuse, then you will learn something that the rest of the galaxy will learn eventually, Alina said. Humanity does not bluff. We do not make threats we cannot keep, and we do not lose. She leaned forward slightly. 1 hour, Counselor. I strongly suggest you use it wisely. The transmission ended. Zorath stared at the blank screen for a moment, then burst into laughter. Did you hear that, Ketson? She gave us an ultimatum. 1 hour. As if we are children being scolded by a parent? Ketson did not laugh. He was watching his sensors, searching desperately for whatever the humans were hiding. There had to be something. No one made threats like that without the power to back them up. My lord, he said quietly, perhaps we should consider. No. Zorath slammed his fist on the arm of his chair. We will not run from animals. All ships advance on the colony. We will show these humans what happens to species who forget their place in the galaxy. The fleet began moving forward, 800 engines burning bright against the darkness of space. They were 50 minutes away from weapons range when Kethson's sensors finally detected something. 12 objects had appeared at the edge of the system. They were small, much smaller than Velkhari warships. They were not using any form of propulsion that Velkhari science could identify. They were simply there, as if they had always existed in that spot and had only now chosen to be seen. 12 ships. Against 800, Ketson felt a cold fear spreading through his body. This was wrong. This was all wrong. No species sent 12 ships against 800 unless those 12 ships were something the galaxy had never seen before. "My lord," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we need to leave. Now." But Zarath was no longer listening. He was staring at the sensor display, watching those 12 small shapes approach his fleet with impossible speed. And for the first time, doubt crept into his heart. The bridge of the Velkari command ship fell silent as the 12 human vessels approached. Every officer stared at their screens, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. The readings made no sense. The ships were moving in ways that should have been impossible. Admiral Ketson watched the tactical display with a mixture of horror and fascination. His military training told him that 12 ships could not threaten a fleet of 800. His instincts told him that everything he knew about warfare was about to become useless. "What are those things?" one of his officers whispered. Ketson shook his head. He had no answer. The human ships did not look like any vessels he had ever seen. They were sleek and dark, with no visible weapons, no engine ports, no windows. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved through space like predators swimming through deep water, silent and deadly. "All ships, prepare for combat," High Counselor Zorath commanded. His voice was steady, but his hands were gripping the arms of his chair so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. "Target the lead vessel. Fire on my command." 800 warships turned their weapons toward the approaching humans. Plasma cannons charged. Missile bays opened. Energy shields flickered to full strength. The Velkari fleet had destroyed civilizations with less firepower than this. The human ships kept coming. They did not slow down. They did not change course. They did not respond to any communication attempts. "My Lord," Ketson said urgently, "we still have time to withdraw." The human ambassador gave us 1 hour. "We have used only 10 minutes. "I will not run," Zorath snarled. "Fire." 800 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. The space between the fleets filled with fire and light as thousands of plasma bolts and missiles streaked toward the human vessels. It was the most concentrated attack the Velkari had ever launched. Nothing could survive it. Nothing could even come close to surviving it. The human ships vanished, not destroyed, not damaged. They simply were not there anymore. One moment they were directly in the path of the attack. The next moment they had moved somewhere else entirely. The Velkari weapons passed through empty space and continued into the void. "Where did they go?" Zorath demanded. "Find them." Before anyone could respond, the human ships reappeared. They were now positioned directly above the Velkari fleet, looking down on the massive warships like hawks, watching mice. They had crossed that distance in less than a second. No acceleration. No visible movement. They had simply been in one place and then been in another. Then they fired. Ketson had seen many weapons in his long career. He had witnessed planet killers and star destroyers and weapons that could tear holes in the fabric of reality. But he had never seen anything like this. The human weapons did not shoot beams or projectiles. Instead, they created distortions in space itself. Small points of absolute darkness appeared among the Velkari ships, lasting only a fraction of a second, but generating gravitational forces beyond anything natural. Ships were pulled toward these points, their hulls bending and warping before the distortions vanished. But the strange thing was that no ships were destroyed. The gravitational weapons were precisely calibrated to damage without killing. Engines failed. Weapon systems went offline. Shield generators burned out. But the hulls remained intact. The crews remained alive. 300 Velkari ships were disabled in the first 20 seconds. "Impossible," someone whispered. The human ships moved again. Blinking across the battlefield like ghosts, they appeared on the left flank, fired their strange weapons, and vanished before the Velkari could respond. They appeared behind the fleet, disabled another 50 ships, and disappeared again. They were everywhere and nowhere at once. Ketson finally understood what he was witnessing. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration. The humans were showing the Velkari exactly what they could do without actually killing anyone. They were proving a point. All ships, fall back, Zora screamed. His composure had finally shattered. Retreat. Retreat. But retreat was not easy, when your enemy could be anywhere in an instant. Every time the Velkari tried to regroup, the human ships appeared among them, disabling more vessels with surgical precision. Every time they tried to jump to hyperspace, the strange gravitational weapons disrupted their engines before they could complete the calculations. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When it was over, 300 Velkari ships were drifting dead in space, their crews alive but helpless. The remaining 500 were damaged in various ways, many of them barely able to move. The human ships floated in the center of the chaos, untouched, unmarked, as if nothing had happened. Ambassador Elena Voss appeared on every screen again. This time, she was standing on the bridge of one of those impossible ships. Behind her, holographic displays showed the battlefield in perfect detail. "Counselor Zorith," she said, her voice calm and almost gentle, "I want you to understand something very important. What you just witnessed was not our full capability. It was not even close to our full capability. We disabled your fleet in 18 minutes using G-12 ships and weapons set to their lowest effective power." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Every ship, every soldier, every life in your fleet, we could have done it in the time it takes you to blink. We chose not to. Do you understand what that means?" Zorith did not respond. He was staring at the destruction around him, his four eyes wide with shock and fear. His entire understanding of the universe had just collapsed. "It means that humanity does not seek conquest," Elena continued. "We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to destroy your civilization or enslave your people. We simply want to exist in peace, to trade and cooperate with other species, to explore and grow and learn. That is all we have ever wanted." She stepped closer to the camera, her expression becoming harder. "But we will not be bullied. We will not be threatened. We will not allow anyone to take what is ours or harm our people. If you attack us, we will defend ourselves. If you try to conquer us, we will defeat you. If you give us no choice, we will destroy you so completely that the galaxy will forget you ever existed." The message was crystal clear. Humanity had power beyond anything the Velkari had imagined, and they had just shown incredible restraint in not using it. "You have 24 hours to remove your ships from this system," Elena concluded. "Your damaged vessels will be allowed to leave safely. Your disabled vessels will be towed to the edge of the system and released. We will not pursue you. We will not attack your homeworld. This conflict ends here, today, unless you choose to continue it." She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Go home, counselor. Tell your people what you saw here. And remember that the next time someone suggests threatening humanity, the decision you make will determine whether your species has a future." The transmission ended. The 12 human ships flickered once and vanished. Leaving the broken Velkari fleet alone in the silence of space, Ketson turned to look at his High Counselor. Zoroth was trembling, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The most powerful being in the Velkari Dominion looked like a frightened child. "My lord," the Admiral said quietly. "What are your orders?" Zoroth did not respond for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "Take us home." The news of the Battle of New Geneva spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every species in the Galactic Council had received reports, censored data, and recordings of what had happened. Within days, the political landscape of a 1,000-year-old civilization had begun to crumble. The Velkari Dominion had been feared for 12 millennia. They had built their empire on the backs of weaker species, crushing anyone who dared to resist them. Their military power had been considered unmatched. Their word had been law in countless star systems now. Everyone had seen 12 ships tear through 800 of their finest warships without breaking a sweat. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every representative who could attend in person did so. Those who could not sent holographic projections. The chamber was more crowded than it had been in centuries, every seat filled. Every eye focused on the central platform, where the fate of empires would be decided. High Counselor Zoroth sat in his elevated seat, but he no longer looked like the proud leader who had insulted humanity just weeks ago. He looked tired. He looked old. He looked like someone who had seen his entire world collapse and did not know how to rebuild it. Ambassador Elena Voss entered the chamber with a larger delegation than before. Admiral James Chen walked beside her, his uniform covered in medals and ribbons that meant nothing to most alien species, but somehow radiated authority nonetheless. Behind them came representatives from every major human colony, moving with the quiet confidence of people who knew they could not be stopped. The chamber fell silent as Elena took her position on the central platform. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the massive space. I come before you today not to seek revenge, not to demand conquest, but to establish the truth about what happened in the New Geneva system and what it means for the future of this galaxy. She activated a holographic display that showed the battle in perfect detail. Ships moving in impossible ways. Weapons that bent space itself. A fleet of 800 reduced to helplessness in less than 20 minutes. High Counselor Zorath violated galactic law by entering sovereign human territory with hostile intent, Elena continued. Under the Council Charter, Article 7, Section 4, we are entitled to seek reparations for this unprovoked attack. We are entitled to demand guarantees of non-aggression. We are entitled to take whatever measures we deem necessary to ensure this never happens again. Zoroth rose from his seat, his four eyes blazing with desperate anger. This is absurd. The Valkyrie Dominion will not bow to primitives who hide their true nature. We will not submit to creatures who deceive the entire galaxy about their capabilities. You are liars. You are? We are survivors, Admiral Chen interrupted, stepping forward. His voice was calm but carried an edge of steel that silenced Zoroth immediately. That is what we are. And if you want to understand why we hid our capabilities for so long, you only need to look in a mirror. He activated another display, this one showing historical records. 600 years ago, the Valkyrie Dominion discovered a species called the Threlk. They were peaceful. They were curious. They had just developed faster than light travel and were eager to meet other civilizations. Do you remember what happened to them, Counselor? Zoroth did not respond. The chamber was deathly quiet. You destroyed them, Chen continued. Every ship, every colony, every man, woman, and child. You burned their homeworld until nothing remained but ash. And do you know why? Because they might have become a threat someday. Because it was easier to kill them than to share the galaxy with them. He let those words hang in the air before continuing. The Threlk were not the first species you exterminated. They were not the last. Over 12,000 years, the Valkyrie Dominion has wiped out at least 47 spacefaring civilizations. Not because they attacked you. Not because they threatened you. Simply because they existed and you did not want competition. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many species had suspected this, but hearing it stated so clearly was still shocking. Humanity learned about your history before we revealed ourselves to the galaxy, Elena said, taking over from the Admiral. We spent almost a century studying every species we could find, analyzing their military capabilities, understanding their cultures and motivations. We knew that when we announced our presence, someone would try to destroy us. We knew it would probably be the Valkyrie. She turned to face Zoroth directly. So we prepared. We developed technologies that the galaxy has never seen. We built ships that can move between points in space without crossing the distance between them. We created weapons that can reshape gravity itself. And we waited until we were certain that no one could threaten our survival. Zoroth's face had gone pale. You deceived us. You deceived everyone. We protected ourselves, Elena corrected. Just as you would have done. Just as you have done countless times by striking first against species that might have become threats. The only difference is that we chose not to destroy you when we had the chance. She turned back to the assembled representatives. That is the point I want everyone to understand. Humanity could have destroyed the Valkyrie fleet at New Geneva. We chose to disable it instead. We could have attacked Velkar Prime while their ships were limping home. We chose to let them go in peace. We have power that this galaxy has never seen, and we have chosen to use it with restraint. The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from dozens of species were talking rapidly with each other, processing this new reality. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted dramatically, and everyone was trying to figure out what it meant for them. Admiral Chen raised his hand, and a new display appeared. It showed intercepted communications between the Valkyrie and their supposed allies. Over the past 72 hours, he said, "We have monitored diplomatic channels across the galaxy. The Keth Consortium has declared neutrality in any conflict involving humanity. The Athari Coalition has requested trade, negotiations with Earth. The Dominion of Scales has offered to serve as mediators. Even the Ravax Hive, who have been Valkyrie allies for 6,000 years, have withdrawn their support." He looked at Zoroth with something that might have been pity. "You stand alone, Counselor. Every species that once feared you has seen what happened at New Geneva. They know now that the Valkyrie are not invincible. They know that there is a new power in the galaxy, and that power has chosen peace over conquest." Zoroth's hands were shaking. His entire empire was collapsing around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "How?" he whispered. "How did you advance so quickly?" "It should have been impossible." Lena smiled, that same mysterious smile she had shown in their first meeting. "It was not quick, Counselor. Humanity discovered the principles of faster-than-light travel long before we announced ourselves. We spent 100 years watching, learning, and developing in secret. When we finally revealed ourselves, we were not the young and naive species you assumed us to be." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "You thought you knew everything about us? You thought we were clever animals who stumbled upon technology by accident. But the truth is, we knew exactly what we were doing. Every step we took, every choice we made, was designed to bring us to this moment." The chamber fell silent. Every representative was staring at the human delegation with new eyes. These were not primitives who had gotten lucky. These were strategists who had planned their emergence into galactic society with careful precision. "We do not want war," Elena concluded. "We do not want conquest. We want to be partners with every species in this galaxy, to trade and explore and grow together. But we will not be bullied, and we will not be threatened. Anyone who tries to harm humanity will face the full consequences of that choice." She looked directly at the camera that was broadcasting to every world in the galaxy. "This is not a threat. It is a promise. And unlike some species, humanity keeps its promises." Zoroth sat down heavily in his seat, defeated. He had gambled everything on intimidating the humans, and he had lost everything as a result. The reckoning had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Geneva, and the galaxy had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted. Old alliances had crumbled. New partnerships had formed. Species that had been enemies for millennia were now talking to each other, bound together by a shared realization that the universe had fundamentally changed. The Valkyrie Dominion still existed, but it was no longer the fearsome empire it had once been. 3 of their 17 star systems had declared independence within the first month. Encouraged by the knowledge that the Valkyrie fleet could no longer enforce obedience, 5 more had followed by the 3rd month. The once mighty Dominion was now reduced to 9 systems, and even those were restless. High Counselor Zoroth had been removed from power by his own people. They had seen the recordings of New Geneva. They had watched their leader's arrogance lead them to the edge of destruction. They had decided that survival was more important than pride. Zoroth spent his final days in a small estate on the outskirts of the capital, watching news broadcasts about humanity's growing influence and wondering how everything had gone so wrong. The answer, he eventually realized, was simple. He had underestimated his enemy. He had assumed that because humans were young, they must be weak. He had believed that power meant the ability to destroy, rather than the wisdom to know when not to. On Earth, celebrations following the victory had been surprisingly quiet. There were no parades, no grand speeches, no monuments built to celebrate the humiliation of the Valkyrie. Instead, there was a sense of solemn satisfaction, the feeling of a people who had faced their greatest fear and emerged stronger for it. Ambassador. Alina Voss addressed the United Nations in a speech that was broadcast to every human world across the galaxy. She stood at a simple podium, wearing the same black uniform she had worn in the council chamber, the blue and green symbol of Earth visible on her shoulder. "Today, I want to talk about what we have accomplished and what comes next," she began. 6 months ago, we revealed the true extent of humanity's capabilities to the galaxy. We showed them that we could not be conquered, could not be intimidated, could not be pushed aside. We won a decisive victory without taking a single life. She paused, her eyes scanning the faces of the delegates before her. That last part is the most important. We could have destroyed the Velkari fleet. We could have bombarded their homeworld. We could have done to them exactly what they have done to so many other species over the past 12,000 years. We chose not to. The chamber was silent, every person hanging on her words. We chose restraint because we believe in something greater than revenge. We believe that the purpose of power is not to dominate others, but to protect what we love. We believe that true strength is shown not by how much destruction we can cause, but by how much destruction we choose not to cause. She activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. With human territories marked in blue and their new trade partners marked in green, the green areas covered almost a quarter of known space. In the past 6 months, humanity has signed trade agreements with over 80 different species. We have established diplomatic relations with governments that refused to speak with us a year ago. We have become mediators in conflicts that have lasted for centuries, helping species find peaceful solutions to ancient disputes. We have done this not through force, but through example. The display changed to show a series of images. Human doctors treating alien patients. Human engineers helping to rebuild damaged infrastructure. Human diplomats sitting at negotiation tables between former enemies. The galaxy has learned that humanity will not be bullied, Alina continued. But more importantly, they have learned that we do not seek domination. We seek partnership. We seek cooperation. We seek a future where every species can thrive, not just the strongest ones. Admiral Chen stood at the back of the chamber, watching with pride. He had commanded the fleet at New Geneva. He had given the orders that disabled 300 enemy ships without killing a single being. He knew better than anyone what humanity was truly capable of, and he was glad that they had chosen the path of peace. In the months following the battle, the Galactic Council had established a new doctrine. It was called the Voss Principle, named after the ambassador who had stood alone against Zoreth's threats and emerged victorious. The principle was simple. Never assume that a species is weak simply because they appear young. Never attack without understanding the true capabilities of your enemy. And always remember that the most dangerous opponent is not the one who threatens loudly, but the one who remains calm in the face of threats. The Voss Principle was now taught in military academies across the galaxy. It was discussed in political chambers and diplomatic schools. It had become a fundamental part of how species interacted with each other. A reminder that arrogance and aggression could lead to catastrophic consequences. Alina concluded her speech with words that would be remembered for generations. Humanity has taken its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as partners. We have shown that it is possible to be strong without being cruel, to be powerful without being tyrannical. We have proven that the newest species in the galaxy can also be among the wisest. She looked directly at the camera, speaking not just to the humans in the chamber, but to every being watching across the galaxy. To those who would be our friends, we offer our hand in cooperation. To those who would test our resolve, we offer a warning. We did not reveal our true strength to inspire fear. We revealed it to ensure peace. Do not mistake our desire for harmony as weakness. We have the power to end civilizations. We choose to build them instead. Years later, historians would mark this speech as the beginning of what they called the human era. It was a time when humanity's influence spread not through conquest, but through cooperation. Not through fear, but through trust. Species that had been isolated for millennia reached out to their neighbors. Ancient conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. The galaxy became a more peaceful place, not because everyone feared humanity, but because humanity had shown that there was a better way. And in academies and war colleges and political chambers across 1,000 worlds, a new proverb emerged. Parents told it to their children. Teachers told it to their students. Leaders told it to their advisors. It became one of the most quoted sayings in galactic history. The Valkyrie had ruled for 12,000 years. They forgot that empires rise and fall. Humanity remembered. Zorth heard that proverb on the news one evening, spoken by a commentator discussing the anniversary of New Geneva. He sat alone in his empty estate, surrounded by the fading glory of his fallen empire. Finally understood the truth that had escaped him for so long. Power was not measured by the ability to destroy. It was measured by the wisdom to know when destruction was not necessary. Humanity had shown that wisdom. The Valkyrie had not. And that was why, in the end, the galaxy had chosen to follow humanity rather than fear the Valkyrie. The new order had begun. And for the first time in 12,000 years, the future looked brighter than the past.